love the aspect of collaboration in STEM because you pair people up, you put them in groups of 3 or 4, and it helps that one who struggles with creativity to start to open up to that and to see, oh, okay, this is how they did it. Well, then maybe I can build on that. Sometimes all they need is somebody to help them get started.
Welcome to the BJU Press Teacher Edition podcast, where Christian educators are encouraged and inspired as we bring you interviews, practical ideas, strategies, and answer your questions about teaching in today's culture. And here's your host, Jenny Copeland.
We are back for another episode on the Teacher Edition podcast, and we're so glad to have each of you with us. It's hard to believe that we are already this far into the fall semester. This is a great time of year, other than that long jaunt to Thanksgiving. But you and your students are hopefully falling into routine. You can get to know your students a little better as that newness wears off. You can also really settle into your content as you kind of get away from the beginning of the year, review times and the newness and things like that. I always enjoyed this time of year when you could really just start branching out and including more and more experiences and activities and that differentiated instruction more and more as you get to know your students and you get to also work with their needs. I also loved overlapping those subjects and making those cross-subject connections. Of course, watching master teachers do an amazing job of that is just a fantastic experience. You know, actually, a few episodes back, Rachel Santapietro talked with us about teaching reading in every subject. Well, today, we're going to look at the topic of science, but not just limiting it to science class. I have a feeling our guest for today has some very practical ideas that you can take with you. So I'm really, really excited to get started because I think this is going to apply to everyone. But before I introduce her, let me remind you to just take a minute and go subscribe to the podcast. You know, when I want to be able to get back to an episode or get back to a podcast quickly, and even just have those new episodes be right there in front of me for me to listen to, subscribing to the podcast or following a podcast is the way to go. And I want to encourage you to do that as well. Make it easy on yourself. Just go subscribe. Let me also encourage you to leave us a rating and a review. If you enjoy this podcast, you can help others find it by leaving us a rating and review. That helps us know what you're enjoying, but it also helps others find the show. Of course, go back out on social media. We are there as well. We are Teacher Edition Podcast on Facebook, and you can find us on Instagram and TikTok at Teacher Edition Pod. Don't forget, we're also on YouTube as Teacher Edition Podcast. Lastly, I want to invite you to go to our website, teachereditionpodcast.com. There you can subscribe to our emails. You can also submit questions. You know, we really look forward to sharing questions on our episodes. So let's have some more of those come in so we can share them on our upcoming episodes. Well, I am excited to welcome Jamie Meachum to the show today. Jamie has over 20 years of experience in education. She has been a classroom teacher in Christian schools. She's been a substitute teacher in both public and Christian schools, and has also been a student teacher supervisor. She's currently a national consultant for BJU Press. Jamie, it's great to have you on the show today. Welcome to the Teacher Edition podcast.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here.
Okay, so I know one area that you work with in schools is in the area of science. And I am sure to some that just seems very limiting. And maybe even some are tempted to skip past this episode. But as I mentioned, of course, with my discussion with Rachel about reading in all subjects, science is another one that seems to easily touch other subjects and really each of us on a daily basis. Jamie, talk with us about science. Maybe we could start with a definition so everyone knows, you know, where are we starting on this? Let's kind of level the playing field. What is science?
Sure. So, you know, a lot of times we just think of science when it comes time to do science class.
Right.
Get out your science books. We're going to do our lesson for today, right? But it's so much more than that. So some of the words that may come to your mind right off the bat when you think about science are observation and testing and experimenting. Okay. So just a very, very simple definition of science would be the study of the natural world through some of these things, through observation, experimentation, investigation, testing theories. Okay. All of that. If we're going to talk about this from a Christian classroom standpoint, we can make it even simpler and say it's the study of God's world. right? He's placed us in it. And let's now study the things around us. Let's learn about this world that he has created. So how do we do that, right? That's probably the next.
Yeah, that's where I want to go today. Okay, so that was a really simple definition. That makes sense. So I've had the opportunity to interact with some fantastic scientists in my life, from professors to parents of some of my students, and now to even some of my own students, really resisting the urge to feel very old there. But based on your definition, I'm guessing being a scientist isn't just limited to those with university degrees or to a career in science. So talk with us about what is needed to be a scientist and really who could or should be one. What do you think?
Sure. So when you think about studying science, a lot of times what comes to mind are the scientific terms, like the scientific method, right? And you've got problem and hypothesis, and you gather your materials and all of that. Sometimes we think of science inquiry skills, observing and classifying, measuring, inferring, right? And those are all part of studying science. But I think that we can even go simpler. What has God given each of us to study the world around us? And I would say the five senses, right? So when we think of science, we do think of all the equipment type things,
sure.
Bunsen burners and beakers
things.
and magnifying glasses and gloves and, all the equipment, which there's a place for that, right?
Sure.
And that's fun. That's what the kids love when they come to science class. They want to do those things, right? But I love taking it back even to simpler things with my students and saying God has given us built-in senses to help us learn the world around us. And while those things are great, you don't have all those things, access to all of those things on a daily basis. And yet we can still learn about the world around us through our five senses. I like to think about the analogy of when you're going through your day, right? We've all done this where you've driven somewhere and you get to your destination and you're like, wait, how did I get here?
Yeah, like every day going to work.
I just went through 5 traffic lights and I hope they were green, right?
Yeah, right.
And it's because we're so into our routine and used to our day that we just go about it. Our mind is elsewhere and we're not even thinking about what's around us. And so it's really practice. It really takes practice to get back to, what do I see around me on a daily basis? What am I hearing? What am I smelling? A lot of times we think of the five senses as being a very juvenile topic. Like that's something we do in kindergarten.
Yeah.
Right. That's
yeah.
something first graders do. I'm not going to talk about the five senses with my 5th and 6th graders, but there are ways to do it. I had a teacher tell me one time that she used to take, and she taught, I believe, older elementary. She used to take her kids outside when it rained. A lot of times we think of that's an indoor recess day. We can't go out, but she would make a point to take her kids out under the covered walk because you can see the rain. You can hear the rain, smell it, taste it. They would stick out their tongues and taste it. She was thinking outside the box of how can I use the five senses with even my older students? If you go online, there are so many resources, but one that I used to use and I loved was a resource that was a scavenger hunt for in your school. And you could print it out, laminate it, give everybody a marker. And it asks you to go around and find a soft sound. Find a smell that you like. Find a smell that you don't like. All these things that you can find just on a walk in your school. You can't do that every day, but maybe once a quarter, do that with some of your older kids. So there are ways to incorporate this with older students.
Yeah. Okay. So it definitely sounds like we're all scientists. This isn't just limited. Okay. So I will admit that teaching science as a subject in a classroom can feel a little intimidating at times, especially at specific levels, those higher levels. And I know some people, that's their calling, that's their gift. I will admit science was not my first love, and it was not an innate talent of mine growing up. I enjoyed it. I mean, especially when it was hands-on, like you said, like I love seeing all the equipment and playing with things. I guess it's not playing, it's working with things. And I was really amazed by how things work, but I wouldn't say that teaching it at a high level would be something successful for me. In fact, it would probably be really, really intimidating. But from what you have said, we are really all science teachers
Yes.
as we guide students in studying and looking at the world around them. So I'm wondering if we could spend the bulk of our time just sharing practical ideas that you have for teachers in this area. I know you spend a lot of time on this topic, so I'm sure you come with some ideas.
Absolutely.
What do you have?
Okay. So, there are the days where you've just got to get into the book. You've got to read the lesson. You've got to cover the material. And absolutely, that's just part of it. But if you could start to incorporate some of these little activities, even with the 5 senses, to remind our students that it's more than just reading this textbook, but we're in this world, we're studying this world, and let's practice using our senses.
Yeah.
So I have a whole bunch of activities. I think I'll just share, I'll just share one as well. We'll go through each of the 5 senses, and I'll share something that I really I've done, and I like it, enjoy it. And I think it's something that you could do with kids of all ages.
Yeah, that sounds great. Let's do it.
Okay. So let's talk about sight first.
Okay.
So sight is our primary sense. It's used more than any other. And it's our eyes and our brains working together, right? Our eyes receive the light. It sends that visual information, converts it into signals, transfers it to the brain, and all of that. So it's a big one. We're looking at things every day, right? So, but to do some activities with color and really getting our students to see some things in ways they haven't seen them before. So a great activity for this is to take an ordinary coffee filter. So like the basket shaped coffee filter,
right? Mm-hmm.
And get some markers, and you'd want to use non-permanent markers for this. But it's great if you're going to start this out the first time, try it with a black or a brown. And what we're going to do is we're going to see the colors that go in to the making of a color in a marker. Okay. So you take your little coffee filter and you're going to draw a pretty thick circle on the flat part of the coffee filter, right about where it meets those edges that start to go up. Do a pretty wide circle there with your marker, and then fold your coffee filter in half and then fold it again so that you sort of get a tip down near the bottom. You're going to take a small jar, just a very low dish or jar, but something that would have edges to stand this coffee filter up in the jar, and put some water in it, and then set the coffee filter down in there once it's been folded. So you'll have just the tip of it in the water. Okay. So just the tip of the white will be in the water, and that ring that you created with the marker is a little farther up because it's
not in the water.
It's not in the water. The marker is not in the water, just the tip. And then you just wait and you watch, and that water is going to soak up into that tip, and it's going to go up into the coffee filter. And when it hits that black or that brown or whatever color marker that you used, it's going to start going through that and bleed out, and you are going to see all the colors that went into the making of that marker. You'll see blues and reds and greens, and it's fascinating. Yeah. So it's a great thing to do, and test it all with all different colors. Have a bunch of them going in your classroom at once. So that's a great one to do for sight.
Okay.
All right. So if we move on then to hearing. Hearing is dealing with vibrations. Obviously, vibrations create waves that then go to our ears. If you want a visual of a vibration, a great thing to use is a slinky. Really, a metal one works better than a plastic one, but stretch out a slinky, have a student on each end, and have the one on one end be very still, and have the other student just slowly move their slinky. And that's going to mimic vibrations. You're going to see the vibrations moving in one direction and mimic what's happening when the sound goes into our ears. But I love to do a chew test with the students. So for a chew test, you're going to give students different objects that they can eat that would have different sounds. So maybe a carrot, potato chip, a piece of bread, whatever you've got on hand for your students. And have them do a little analysis of the sound that they hear when they chew this food. Now, what I like to do is just chew normally, but then have the students plug their ears and continue chewing. And they're going to notice that it sounds very loud. It is amplified now. And that
like the elementary school lunchroom, you mean?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And all they're going to hear is their chewing. And that is due to the eustachian tubes being connected from the ears to the nose to the throat. And you're blocking out all other outside noise when you plug your ears. So you're only hearing your chewing. It sounds a lot louder. So fun little test for the students to do to hear the difference between those things.
That's great.
Okay. So if we move on to touch, skin is the primary organ involved in touch. And really our hands act as a second set of eyes for us. How many things do we touch throughout the day? Right? We are constantly touching things. Students are probably touching things you don't want them to be touching all the time.
I think
right?
COVID kind of highlighted that, right? Like don't touch anything.
Right. Exactly. So I really like to think of our hands as our second eyes. Because what we touch tells us so much about an object, just as if we were viewing it. And you can do some experiments with that with your students. Put objects in bags where they cannot see it. They have no use of their eyes. And just by that touch, they have to determine what that is, what that object is. So that's a great one. But I love to do things with our skin and show how our skin has these receptors in it to sense and to feel. So a great activity for this is to get 3 glasses of water. It is best to use a glass, not something plastic. But you'll have 3 glasses of water. In the middle, put a glass of water that is room temperature water. On one side, put one that is ice water. Make sure there are ice cubes in it. And on the other side, put a glass of water that is warm, on borderline hot. Not too hot that you cannot touch it, but definitely on the warmer side. So then have a student put one hand on the glass of ice water and one hand on the glass of hot water. And make sure that their hand is wrapped around that glass. So it doesn't have to be all the way around, but you want the flat part, you want the palm up against that glass, not just their fingertips. So have them hold on to both of these at the same time. And they don't have to be holding, they can sit on their desk for about 60 seconds. And when they're done, then take both hands and hold that glass in the center. That is the room temperature water. And it's going to be very confusing to them as to what does this water feel like? Is it cold? Is it hot? The hand that was holding the ice water is going to think that this glass is warm water because it's warmer than the ice. And the one
relieved.
that was holding the hot is going to think it's colder, but we're both our hands are touching the same thing.
Interesting.
This kind of shows them that our skin cannot determine exact temperatures of things, but it more determines things by comparison. It compares hot and cold rather than telling exact temperature. It's the same kind of feeling when you go in a swimming pool. You've been outside in the air and you get in the swimming pool and it feels very cold, but after a while, you adjust to it, right?
You just have to do the cannonball and get it over with, right?
Just get the head all the way in, Yes. So, same kind of thing there. It's just it's an adjusting of temperature, but it's a really neat thing to see that, hey, this water is just room temperature, yet it's not telling me that. My skin's not telling me that.
Right.
Yeah. So that's a great one to do with the students. Okay, taste. Let's move on to taste. So taste and smell really go hand in hand. There are so many things that are based on both taste and smell together, but taste really gives us information about our food. An interesting part of taste is that our taste really aids in our digestion, because when you eat your food, our salivary glands release digestive enzymes to then help us break down that food. So it all kind of works together. But with taste, I mean, there's so many things you can do. Of course, tasting the different groups: sweet, salty, sour, bitter, having some objects from each of those groups and letting the students taste those in between. I'd have them take a sip of water to make sure that we cleanse our palate before we try a new taste. But I love to do some blindfolded activities with taste, because anytime you remove one of your senses and you're just getting it down, narrowing it down to that one, it takes over. You know, when you don't have when you don't have the use of your sight, you rely more on your hands or whatever else you have. It just takes over. So I love to do some testing without the sense of our eyes. So get a blindfold. A couple things you can do. Get a light soda and a dark soda, like a Coke and a Sprite. And without seeing the colors, can a student take a sip and determine what this is? Is this
so maybe everything wouldn't taste like chicken, you know, like when you have alligator and it's like, oh, everything tastes like chicken. You know, maybe if we didn't see it.
Exactly. Right. Another one I like to do, and you need a partner for this one, is a jelly bean test. So, you know, sometimes our mind can play tricks on us. So if we have some jelly beans in front of us, we have a red one, we're thinking, oh, this is probably going to be strawberry or cherry, right? We have a green one. This is probably going to be lime, because we're looking at the color and we're associating the color with the taste. So I would partner the students up and give them each a few jelly beans and have them first look at them. And based on its color, what do you think the flavor is going to be for this jelly bean? Then blindfold one of the partners, have the other partner choose one, put it in their hand, and now they eat it. Now they have not seen, they have no idea what color they've just been given. What does it taste like? And it's very interesting. Some of them don't match up, but our brain told us, no, it's going to be strawberry because it's pink. Right. know? So I love to do that with them. Students are typically surprised that it didn't taste like what they thought it was going to taste like. So just taking out one of our senses can really heighten another one.
Sure. Yeah.
All right. So let's move into smell finally. Smell involves the detection and identification of molecules in the air. And then, like I said, it's very closely linked to taste. So a couple things you could do for this. Get partners again and do a tea bag match. So there are all different flavors of tea bags out there, right? So I would give each grouping maybe 8 tea bags, and it would be 4 pairs of 2. So have one blindfolded and have them smell, and then see if they can smell the other 3 and find out which one matches. See how their sense is. You know, is this a blueberry tea? Is this a cinnamon tea? And see if they can match them up. That's a great one. You can also do mystery smells, where you put something in a bag and they're just based on their smell. Can they tell what it is? Coffee beans, some garlic, some chocolate, some bread, just on their sense of smell. You can also do some with your taste, have them taste something with their nose unplugged and then taste it again with their nose plugged and see if it changed the taste, because a lot of our taste is based on our sense of smell.
Yeah, you heard that so much coming through COVID, and people lost their sense of smell, and now things didn't taste great. You know, it's so interesting how our senses work together.
Yes. So I hope some of those got your mind thinking and realizing, okay, wait, I can do this with my 3rd, 4th, 5th, 6th graders. This is not just something for kindergarten.
Right. Yeah. And what I heard a lot of was thoughtfulness, intentionality, you know, just taking time to make them aware of their senses, even if that's just not exactly what the book says exactly to do. You know, it's just God has given this to us in the world around us. Use it.
Absolutely. And like I said, this is not something that you could do every day. Otherwise, you'd never get through your science material. But maybe you say, on Fridays, we're going to do explore one of our senses. Or maybe you do it twice a month, exploring the senses. But, you know, whatever works out with your schedule. Yep.
Yeah, that's great. Just that focus on science. Okay, talk with us about STEM. So we hear that term thrown around a lot. It's not a bad thing. We just hear it a lot. I mean, we've even had a session or, a session or two here on the podcast So why is STEM so important? What's your thought on that? Is this just a fad, or is this really something we need to go with? What do you think?
So I remember when I first started hearing about STEM, and really it took my brain a little bit to think on those things. And is this just a fad? Is this just something that's going to pass? But as time has gone on, I realize it's so beneficial in the classroom. You have all different types of learners, and it might just be the thing for one of those learners that makes something click for them. They might just need to do in order to understand. And this might be the way that it happens. So once again, with STEM, when you're talking about science and technology, engineering and math, it's really a blending of these subjects and incorporating that into your learning. So this is not something that you can do every time you come to science class or every time you do math. I look at it as like the senses: incorporate as you can and when you can, but don't be overwhelmed by, I've got to do a STEM activity today. Here's why it's important. Here's why I really think that it's important for several reasons. One, it allows for that critical thinking piece. We want our students to be thinkers, right? That's the whole purpose of what we do. We don't want them to just be memorizers where they can just be a little computer and spit out information. But can they think, right? So can they analyze a problem? Can they break it down, create a solution? Can they problem solve? You're going to have to problem solve all through life, right? So can they identify a problem and then come up with various solutions to it? And I love the idea that there may be various solutions, because we are all created differently. We all think differently. And I used to love it in my classroom when one student would say, I would do it this way. And another student would say, that doesn't make any sense to me. I would do it this way, right?
And they both work.
And they both work.
Yeah.
They both work, right? So that's the beauty of some of this creative problem solving. Leading into it allows for creativity. Because we all are different, we all think differently. Some are going to have different ideas that others would never even thought of. And I love that. I love that. It allows for collaboration. Okay. We all have those students that are just like, I don't know what to do. I'm stuck. I don't know where to go from here. And I will tell you myself, my personality, I was not the creative type. I can execute something very well. But coming up with the ideas to execute it, not my forte, right? So I love the aspect of collaboration in STEM, because you pair people up, you put them in groups of 3 or 4, and it helps that one who struggles with creativity to start to open up to that and to see, oh, okay, this is how they did it. Well, then maybe I can build on that. Sometimes all they need is somebody to help them get started, right? So I love the collaboration aspect. And then curiosity. It really gets the students thinking, well, if I did this and it worked, what would happen if I did this instead? Or what would happen if I changed it completely and I went this way with it? It opens up this world of questioning and leading into this curiosity that I don't think we'd have if we're just reading a book.
Sure.
So I think there are so many benefits to it that you can't not do it.
Right.
But I also know the practical side of it in the classroom.
Yes. And that's what I want to talk about next, because STEM can feel really overwhelming to teachers. It seems a lot of preparation and parts and pieces. Do you have any insights for teachers on how they could implement STEM in their classrooms and not die trying?
Absolutely. So you for sure do not want to be overwhelmed. If you get yourself overwhelmed at the beginning, it's going to be hard for you to ever want to do a STEM activity again.
Yeah.
So that is key. So here's a few recommendations that I would have. Start small. Don't think I've got to incorporate STEM into my classroom. And so now I've got to do all the things, buy all the things, get all the things, make all these things. No. Start very small. Maybe you're going to incorporate one STEM activity per science unit. Maybe you'll say, I'm going to incorporate one STEM activity per month. That is very doable, or twice a month. And once again, this doesn't have to be done during science class. When we are pressured we've got to get through this material, great. So you could have some STEM stations around your room. Maybe you start out with just one. When you feel like you've got a handle on it, add a second one. But by doing that, you're incorporating some STEM into your classroom without having to, we've got to do it. I've got to build it into my science lesson time. There are ways to do outside of that. So start small. Use everyday materials. So there are so many ideas online for STEM activities. And when you're starting out, I would just bypass anything that require big purchases or lots of parts and pieces. And, you want the ones that are popsicle sticks and cotton balls and those
yarn.
kinds of things.
We all have yarn, right?
Yes. You can even, back to the STEM stations. If you decide to have a STEM station, you can go online. There are things called Lego challenges. You can print out free cards for Lego challenges. Have a pile of Legos and have some little cards, and they've got to do something with them. Maybe they have to make something that goes, whether it's a car or, something that would move. But you can print out these free printables. You can find them, and gives you a whole bunch of Lego challenges. I mean, that's so simple. But so using everyday materials, and at the end today, we'll talk about a few examples that I have, and then encourage collaboration when you're doing this. So starting small, using everyday materials, encourage collaboration. We really want students to work together. Like, this is the rest of our life, right? When you go out into a job, you're working with other people. You're problem solving with other people. So you don't always want to, in your classroom, make it where it's an individual thing that they have to do. But really encourage, get with a partner, work on this together, do this together. And in light of that, talk about what your expectations are. So a lot of times students are afraid to try things because they're afraid of it not working. Right? I just don't think it's going to work. It's going to fail. But this is what scientists do all the time. Scientists don't expect things to work right the first time, every time. So talking about that with your students and changing the mindset to have our thinking be, okay, I tried this and this was my first attempt in learning. So instead of I tried it and it didn't work and I'm discouraged, look at it differently and say, okay, I tried it. It didn't work. That was my first attempt in learning how to do this. I'm going to try it again now. And let's see what happens on my second attempt. And using it more as this is a building process of going through the steps to find out what is going to be the final result and the best result. And it's a process. It takes steps to get there. So don't worry if it doesn't work the first time, making sure you share those expectations with your students.
Yeah, probably a good reminder for us as teachers too. It's okay if it doesn't work the first time. You can try it again. They're forgiving. We'll keep going. Okay, I know we're getting close on time, but another associated term with what we've talked about today is engineering design process. So as we wrap up this episode, I wondered if you could talk with us about that and its place in the classroom. What do you have there?
Sure. So the engineering design process is a process within the STEM learning. Okay. So I liken it to the scientific method a little bit. It kind of runs parallel to that. So if your science process involves observing and experimenting, then for something like that, you're going to follow the scientific method. Okay. For experimenting, observing. But if your process is going to involve more building and designing, testing that way, then you would follow the engineering design process. The engineering design process is basically you're identifying a problem. So what is this problem that I have? Then we are imagining, we're brainstorming. What can I do to solve this problem? Are there limitations that I have in solving this problem? Then you get a plan. Okay, so you always have to plan before you execute, kind of like estimating before you solve, right? So plan it out, draw some designs, and then create. Follow your plan and then test it. See if your plan worked, and then communicate. Share it with others. If it worked, if it didn't work, share what happened with others so that we can learn from it. Hey, this didn't work. We're going to have to go another route, or this worked so well. Try this. So those are kind of the steps. And just if I give you a couple examples that would be really easy with things that you probably have.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Toothpicks and mini marshmallows. Okay. And have your students build the tallest tower that they can in an allotted amount of time. And not only the tallest tower, but it has to stand alone. Okay. So you're going to have to plan out, what is the base of this tower going to need to look like if I'm going to have it be tall and be able to stand on its own? What are some of the limitations that I have? Well, maybe I've only been given a certain amount of toothpicks and a certain amount of marshmallows. I've also been given a time limit. So I've got to work within that. So you've got your limitations. Then you're going to plan, sketch it out. What would be some options? I love to do this in a group because everybody's going to have different ideas. And then you're going to test those. Okay, well, we'll try this person's idea first, and that did not work. So now we're going to try this person's and see if it was any better. But toothpicks and marshmallows, easy thing you've got. You can also build a tower with 3x5 cards. Okay, 3x5 cards are so cheap, right? Give a group a stack of 3x5 cards. And maybe your limitation is you can only fold each card once. So it doesn't matter where that fold is. It could be a corner. It could be in half. It could be in half lengthwise, widthwise, but only one fold in the card, in any given card. And then say, build a tower or build a bridge or something like that. But those are very easy things. Do a pom-pom launcher with little pom-poms and rubber bands and popsicle sticks. I love to do a paper plate marble run. Give everybody a paper plate. Give them, it doesn't even have to be a marble. It could be a pom-pom. And give them some materials. I would give some construction paper, some plastic straws, have a glue stick and scissors, and they can cut the straws, they can cut the construction paper, and give them 5 elements that must be on that plate for that marble or that pom-pom to pass through. So they could, make a pathway with the straws, and it has to pass through the straws. They could make a little arch with the construction paper that they glue down, and then it has to go under the arch. So the limitations would be you have to incorporate 5 elements, but all they're using is a paper plate. You could use pipe cleaners, give them whatever to put onto that plate. But these are things that most teachers have or are easy to access for a lot of students. So if I could, end with, I don't know if you've any other questions you want to ask.
No, this is great. Go ahead.
Okay. If I could end with just one quote, and this is a quote found in BJU Press in some of our product, but success in science learning really demands hands-on activities that get the students thinking about the world around them. And if we go back to what we said at the very beginning, our key here is God has placed us in this world. Let's learn it. Let's study it. Let's know so that we can take care of the things around us. And really by having those hands-on activities, that's going to help the students really learn and solidify those things.
Yeah, that is great. These are engaging. I love that these are very doable. They're understandable. These are ideas that teachers can use right now in their classrooms. And, I just love the fact that anybody can do this. You may not just be teaching science right now, but on Fridays, you're going to do some kind of activity. And I'm here to tell you, like those problem solving skills, those critical thinking skills, they need those developed, especially in the world that, we're living in now, where those types of skills are kind of being downplayed and pushed away as things do stuff for us, AI or whatever, other things like that, just getting them hands-on in there, working together, collaborating. These are all just fantastic. So Jamie, thank you so much for giving of your time to be with us today. This was fantastic, really practical, and I appreciate you being on the show.
Of course, happy to do it.
And listeners, it's been great having you with us as well. I hope you're signing off with some fun and some practical ideas for being a scientist and encouraging scientists in your classroom. Remember to go to teachereditionpodcast.com to learn more about the show and to submit questions for upcoming episodes. Of course, be sure to subscribe to the podcast, follow us on social media. Now it's time to get back to your day. It's not just any day though, because every day in the classroom is your day to impact and inspire through God's power, also through His grace working in you. Now, go do what God has called you to do.